Good day, everyone. Good day, ma'am. I am Kathy P. Sasidor from the Group 2 Reporter number 6. Today, we'll be discussing the Philippine-American War, which took place from 1899 to 1902. This was a very important time in our history as Filipinos fought for independence again from American rule. Today, we will also discuss and explore what led to the war, what happened during it, and how it affected our country, the Philippines. So let's proceed to the learning objectives. So by the end of this lesson, we should understand the major battle during this war, especially the Battle of Manila, see how American culture started to influence Filipino culture. The third one is learn how the Malolos Republic was formed. This was the first attempt to an independent Filipino government. And lastly, appreciate why the proclamation of our independence was so significant and emotional for our ancestors. So these are our learning objectives. So let's proceed to the discussion. So let's start the discussion. So the slide 3, Abstraction, Treaty of Paris, and start off the war. I will not read now the PPT, but I will just simply and directly explain this one. So let's go back a bit. After the Spanish-American War in 1898, Spain lost, and as part of their agreement with the United States, they gave the Philippines to America, and this deal was made in the Treaty of Paris. But just before the U.S. officially accepted the treaty, fighting already began between Filipino forces led by Emilio Aguinaldo and the Americans. The Filipinos didn't want a new colonizer, they wanted a full independence. This war lasted 3 years. Around 4,200 American soldiers and more than 20,000 Filipino fighters died. But what's heartbreaking is that almost 200,000 civilians or ordinary Filipinos also died because of hunger, diseases, and violence. So, next. Abstraction, Spanish colonization. To understand why the Filipinos fought so hard for independence, we have to look even further back to when Spain first colonized the Philippines in 15s. Spain used our country mainly for farming and trade, especially with China and East Indies, for almost 300 years. The Spanish controlled our government, religion, and daily life. Even the Filipinos had already been trading with other countries like China and the Arab world before the Spaniards came. The Spanish colonization changed everything, how we live, how we believe, and how we governed ourselves. So when the Americans took over after Spain, many Filipinos felt they had enough of being ruled by foreign powers. So next, abstraction, Spanish colonization and the rise of nationalism. During the Spanish colonization, the Spanish crown really wanted to control the Philippines closely. They replaced the encomienda system with their own crown officials to make sure everything was under control, like collecting taxes, defending the colony, and spreading Christianity. Basically, Filipinos were required to follow the Christian faith. By the 18s, Spanish rule started to loosen a little, but they were still strict. Only the rich or elite Filipinos had the chance to study abroad, and through that, they were introduced to ideas about freedom, democracy, and nationalism. One of the most influential figures during this time was Jose Rizal. He wrote books that opened the eyes of Filipinos to the injustices happening under Spanish rule. Because of this, he inspired a lot of people to fight for change. Sadly, he was arrested and executed, but his death pushed many Filipinos to join the Katipunan, a secret revolutionary group that fought for our country's independence. Next, abstraction, Katipunan, and revolution. When the Spanish discovered the Katipunan's plans, the group was forced to accelerate its action, igniting the Philippine Revolution in August 1896. A temporary truce followed, with Spain promising reforms. However, Spain to failed to act on this promise. And by 1898, Emilio Aguinaldo returned to lead a renewed revolutionary effort. The Filipinos took advantage of the Spanish-American War, aligning their fight for independence with the broader conflict between Spain and the United States. Next, Battle of Manila Bay, Battle of the Manila Bay. Now let's talk about the Battle of Manila Bay. When the U.S. decided to annex the Philippines, it stirred debate back home. For some Americans, it was a strategic move. Asia offered vast commercial potential. Controlling the Philippines meant access to new markets and trade routes, which they believe would boost the U.S. economy and global influence. Next, Battle of Manila Bay, gihapon siya, and others supported annexation because they doubted Filipinos' ability to govern themselves. There was concern that if the U.S. didn't take control, another colonial power like Germany or Japan might. Meanwhile, many Americans opposed colonization entirely, seeing it is as morally wrong or fearing it would allow non-white Filipinos into American political life. Some simply opposed it to undermine President McKinley administration regardless to the ethical debate. Next, American colonization of the Philippines on June 12, 1898. Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence. However, the U.S. rejected this and aimed to take control, leading to a guerrilla war between Filipinos and Americans. Next, the Philippine-American War from 1899 to 1902. It started after the American troops fired on Filipino soldiers in America. It is deadlier than the Spanish-American War. 126,000 U.S. troops deployed, and death toll of 4,234 Americans and 16,000 Filipino fighters. Up to 200,000 Filipino civilians was died because of hunger, diseases, and both sides committed atrocities. Aguinaldo turned to guerrilla warfare after dissolving the America in 1899. Next, the slide 12. End of resistance and continued unrest. Emilio Aguinaldo captured in 1901, marking the end of organized resistance. Guerrilla uprisings continued, especially in Muslim regions, until 1913. U.S. established free trade in 1909, expanded further in 1913. Next, U.S. civil government in the Philippines. Civil government set up in 1901 with William Taft as governor. English made the official language, and here also is the arrival of 600 American teachers via USS Thomas, and the Catholic Church lost land which was redistributed. Next, toward Filipino self-rule is the gradual introduction of self-governance. And in 1907, elected Filipino legislature established, and it is also the time that early foundations for eventual independence. Next, consequence of American colonial rule. Spaniards gave large landholdings to the Catholic Church during their rule. Americans aimed to redistribute this land upon taking control. In 1904, the U.S. paid $7.2 million to the Vatican to acquire these properties. Small farmers or tenants didn't benefit. Land ended up with large landowners. Most small farmers couldn't afford the price or prove their previous ownership. Next is the road towards Philippine independence. Here is that June's law on 1916 promised a future independence passed under President Wilson. Tidings McDuffie Act proposed a 10 year transition via Commonwealth government. Also in 1916, Philippine Autonomy Act or June's Law passed by U.S. Congress. Next is the slide 19, the Commonwealth government. Back in 1932, the U.S. government passed the Harry Howes Cutting Act. It said that the Philippines could become fully independent by 1945, but only after 10 years of self-rule under the U.S. supervision. However, Manuel L. Quezon, a Filipino leader, didn't agree with this. He was worried about how it would affect our economy, especially with American tariff, and didn't like that it would let the U.S. keep naval bases here. Because of Quezon's influence in the Philippine legislature rejected the act. Next, establishment of the Commonwealth in 1935. When Manuel Quezon became president on November 15, 1935, the Commonwealth of the Philippines officially began. It had a strong leader, a single-house National Assembly, and for the first time since 1901, a Supreme Court made up entirely of Filipinos. But the Commonwealth faced problems too. Unrest among farmers, rising tensions in Southeast Asia, and doubts about how committed the U.S. really was to our full independence. Next, Manuel Luis Quezon. From 1990s to 1942, the Philippines was under American control. But in 1934, a law was passed allowing us to have our own government called the Commonwealth of the Philippines. Manuel L. Quezon became the first president. He was given some control over internal affairs and started leading changes during the American period. This was an important step toward finally becoming an independent country. Next is the Tiding-McDuffie Act and Quezon's presidency. The Tiding-McDuffie Act came in 1934 and was a revised version of the earlier Harry Howes Act or Harry Howes Act. It is still planned for Philippine independence but made changes, especially about U.S. military bases that addressed Quezon's concern. On May 14, 1935, elections were held and Quezon won. A Filipino government was formed, modeled after the U.S. system. Later that year, on November 15, Quezon officially became president and a Commonwealth was launched with Filipino leaders running the government for the first time in decades.
Good day everyone. So I'm Christopher James Pere and I'm gonna report the American Legacy. So what is American Legacy? So American Legacy, this is the like they gave us or we inherited from them. So in government, they gave us democracy or democracy, and the greatest legacy of the American gave us three branches, which is the executive, legislative, and judiciary. In education, public schools were opened up. So in that day, the public schools were opened up, and then the first teachers were called Thomasites because they came on board the USS Thomas. So here they called Thomasites because they come on board in the boat called USS Thomasites. There about 500 plus American teachers that board in that boat and arrive in the Philippines and teach Filipinos English language and also to be a professional teacher. And then in the medium of instruction is English. So the language they use is English because as far as I know is the Americans prohibited us to use our native language. That's why they use English language. And then schools established. So the school that established in the time of American War is the University of the Philippines, Philippine Normal College, and other agricultural schools. Example of this is the University of the Philippines College Agriculture, that located in Los Baños, Laguna. And then, in religion, Protestantism was introduced. So example of this is the Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal, and Seventh-day Adventist. So there was a separation of the church and state. So as far as I know, in the Philippine Constitution of 1987, the church would not run the government, and the government would never tell the church what to teach. Ato lang. And then freedom of religion was practiced. So in that time, the freedom of religion was practiced. No, kung sa imong piliun, kung sa imong religion, na kay freedom ana. In infrastructure, transportation and communication was improved. So because the American built roads, streets, and bridges, and because of that infrastructure, the movement of products and services are more easy to transport. So boulevards, zone, districts, and centers of leisure were also established. And then the American architecture are still present today. So example of that is the PNU, Manila Hotel, and PGH. And then in entertainment, Hollywood movies became more popular. Like for example, Avengers, wala ba Avengers una? Wala. Basta mga Hollywood movies before. And then new kinds of music and dance were introduced, like rock and roll, boogie, jazz, tango, cha-cha, polka, and rumba. So Filipinos also learned to watch and play games, ball games like table tennis, basketball, volleyball, football, and also boxing. Wala namang bola sa boxing. So, health and sanitation. Filipinos learned the value of cleanliness and healthy practices. They were taught proper hygiene to make them healthy and be free from contagious diseases. So they taught by Americans to, the proper hygiene, how to clean. So, health and sanitation, hospitals, clinics, and health centers were established, including public hospitals for lepers. Lepers is katong mga tao nga nagsuffer sa leprosy. Basta mo na siya. So in clothing, it was changed to American style. In men, suits, polo shirts, ties, and jeans instead of barong and pants. While in women, dresses, high-heeled shoes, and handbag instead of Filipiniana. And then in food, American introduced the ice cream, cakes, beef steak, hot dogs, hamburgers, sandwiches, cookies, and donuts. In livelihood, Philippine economy improved, increase in agricultural production. So in that time, the Philippine economy was improved, and it increased the agricultural production or our crops. For example, is our rice, our corn, and etc. So attitude. So Filipino became more frank and more humorous. We developed a stronger beliefs in rights and freedom. So ang pagmamano was replaced by kissing cheeks of parents and elders as a sign of respect. So language. The English language was widely taught all over the country. So soon some English words became part of our vocabulary. Filipinos adopted American names like Charlie, Anna, Frances, and Cherry. So negative impact of American colonization. So here is like we adopt how Americans live. We adopt their cultures, how they dress, what are their food, or what they eat, and also their values. So and second one is colonial mentality. Here is like we tend to normalize that American culture is more superior than ours. That's colonial mentality. So, respectful Filipino ways of greeting will replace by merely saying hi or hello. So, before, like, I think, sa una, we bow. Filipinos started to prefer white-collar jobs. When we say white-collar jobs, this is the jobs that office-based or professional jobs, for example, teachers, doctors, nurses, and etc. Then, traditional Filipino food like bibingka and suman were replaced by American food like hot dog and french fries. So, even now, we prefer hot dog and french fries. Though, nagapagabaligyaw ka ng bibingka and suman. Our sense of bayanihan. In summary, we seem to reject our own identity. So, let's go to after the Spanish-American War. So, diri, while debate ang American public and politicians about the annexation question, or when we say annexation, like pagsanib or fusion sa usa ka lugar. Filipino revolutionaries under Aguinaldo seized control. Like he grabbed the opportunity. They grabbed the opportunity to rule or to control the most of the Philippine main island of Luzon, and they announced the establishment of independent Philippine Republic. So when people realized that the U.S. forces were intent on forcing the American colonial control over the islands, the early clashes or ilang katong before nila nga away in 1899 mas ni grabe, and it results in all-out war. And then American, instead of viewing it as viewing or taking the Filipinos argument nga nakipag-away sila sa mga foreign invader, they view it as like paghimagsik sa kanila mga American. So, Emilio Aguinaldo. There were two phases to the Philippine-American War. The first phase is in February to November 1899. Napildi si Aguinaldo to fight the mga trained American troops. And then the second phase was marked by the Filipino shift to guerrilla-style warfare. When we say guerrilla-style, this is mga techniques like Nikki style or ambushed. So, it began in November of 1899, lasted through the capture of Aguinaldo in 1901 and into the spring of 1902, by which time most organized Filipino resistance had dissipated, or most of Filipino resistance were nag-fade away na, nawala na. And President Theodore Roosevelt proclaimed a general amnesty and declared the conflict over on July 4, 1902. So, si Theodore Roosevelt, he proclaimed or he announced a general amnesty. When we say general amnesty, this is like ang government forgive those people nga nakasala sa government or they committed crime in government. And then he also declared that the conflict is over natapos na on July 4, 1902. Although minor uprisings and insurrection against American rule periodically occurred in the years that followed. So, long story short, ang United States is mas lamang sila because they are more prepared than Filipinos na they struggle about their materials and also sa mga support sa outside the country. And then si Aguinaldo napagtanto niya nga katong ilang mga fight nila is in the first few months is is a big mistake pala. They lost lots of people and also materials. And nagsabi po sila if ang guerrilla tactics ilang giuna daw if giuna daw nila ang guerrilla tactics mas na possibility nga madaog sila if na implement siya in the beginning of the conflict. So, President Theodore Roosevelt. The war was brutal on both sides. U.S. forces at times burned villages, implemented civilian reconcentration policies, and employed torture on suspected guerrillas, while Filipino fighters also tortured captured soldiers and terrorized civilians who cooperated with American forces. So, the war was brutal in both sides, no? And sabi nila ang policies, and they employed nga if na masakpan or na suspicious nga or na sila maksakpan nga mga guerrillas is ilang torturon. And also, ang mga Filipino, ilang gina-torture, ilang gina-capture ang mga soldiers, and gina-terrorize nila mga civilians nga naga-cooperate sa o nagakampi sa American forces. Then, many civilians died during the conflict as a result of the fighting. No? So, daghang namatay tungod sa fighting, and then naay diseases nga ni abot, cholera and malaria epidemics, and food shortage caused by severe agricultural catastrophes. So, diri si future President William Howard Taft, he launched a pacification campaign, also called as the Policy Attraction. Policy Attraction is kanang mo siya tong Policy Attraction is it's supported by rich and educated people nga against kang Aguinaldo, or wala ni support kang Aguinaldo that time. So main purpose ani is to the economic growth or development of the economy. So over time ang mga tao, ang mga Filipinos, they supported this program, and after that it helped American to win towards Revolutionary Army of Filipinos. And so in 1907 the Philippines convened its first elected assembly. Like they pinatupad nila ilang first elected assembly, and then the act in 1916, the Jones Act, it will improve our self-government, and also it promised the eventual independence or papalapit ng independence sa Pilipinas. Then the archipelago become an autonomous Commonwealth in 1935. Mas na independent ang Commonwealth in 1935. And the US, after 1946, the US gave us our independence. Thank you.
So let's proceed to the Malolos Republic. The story of the Malolos Republic is a pivotal chapter in Philippine history, a testament to the Filipino people's unwavering pursuit of self-determination. Following a series of hard-fought victories against the Spanish alongside American forces, General Emilio Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence on June 12, 1898. This momentous occasion marked the birth of the First Philippine Republic, also known as the Malolos Republic, with Aguinaldo at its helm. The Malolos Republic established a government based on a constitution reflecting Filipino ideals and aspirations. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of a nation striving for self-governance. However, this dream was short-lived. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1898, ceded the Philippines from Spain to the United States, effectively transferring colonial control. This unexpected turn of events ignited the Philippine-American War. Filipino forces under Aguinaldo's leadership engaged in a fierce guerrilla resistance against the newly arrived American power. This struggle, marked by both bravery and sacrifice, lasted until 1901, when Aguinaldo's capture signaled a turning point in the conflict. While initially advocating continued resistance, Aguinaldo eventually urged his countrymen to accept the new reality. The American colonial period in the Philippines was a complex era, while the U.S. government claimed its intentions were to prepare the Philippines for eventual independence. A paternalistic approach that many Filipinos and Americans alike questioned. It's undeniable that American presence contradicted the principles of self-determination. Yet, the American administration did bring about some positive changes. There was a gradual increase in Philippine representation in the civil service. This progress culminated in the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934, which set the date of Philippines' independence in 1945. Emilio Aguinaldo, a figure both revered and controversial, embodied the Filipino spirit of independence. His unwavering belief in a Filipino self-rule and the right of the Filipino people to govern themselves according to their own customs and traditions remains a powerful legacy. His vision of a truly independent Philippines continues to inspire generations. Now let's proceed to the government under Americans. The acquisition of Philippines by United States marked the beginning of tumultuous period. The Treaty of Paris, signed on December 10, 1898, officially transferred control the islands from Spain to the United States. Almost immediately, the U.S. government imposed military rule, setting the stage for a direct clash with Filipino aspirations for self-determination. Despite the American assertion of control, Filipino nationalism remained strong. On January 5, 1899, Emilio Aguinaldo, undeterred, proclaimed the independence of Philippines once again. He established a rebel government in Malolos on January 23rd, solidifying his position as president of this defiant government. This act of defiance directly challenged the authority of the newly established American regime. The conflict escalated rapidly. On February 4, 1899, open clashes erupted between American troops and Filipino forces in Manila, marking the official start of the Philippine-American War. The war spread throughout the archipelago, highlighting the determination of the Filipinos to resist American control. By May 18, 1899, American forces had seized control of Jolo in the Sulu archipelago, further extending their military presence and demonstrating the scale of the conflict. Now let's proceed to the conflict phase of Philippine-American War. The conflict phase of the Philippine-American War, lasting from November 1, 1899 to April 16, 1902, was a brutal and protracted struggle. Emilio Aguinaldo's continued rebellion against the American military government ignited a series of intense battles across the archipelago. The war was characterized by numerous significant engagements. So the deaths of General Henry Ware Lawton during a rebel attack near San Mateo on December 19, 1899 underscored the ferocity of the Filipino resistance. Subsequent clashes near Katubig, Cagayan de Misamis, and Pulang Lupa and Mabitak, among other locations, resulted in significant casualties on both sides, highlighting the widespread nature of the conflict. So the capture of Emilio Aguinaldo on March 23, 1901 by Filipino troops loyal to U.S. government marked a turning point. His subsequent oath of allegiance to the U.S. government on April 19, 1901 did not end the fighting. So the conflict continued with incidents like the Balinga Massacre on September 28, 1901, where American soldiers were ambushed, resulting in a significant loss of life. So, the American military's establishment of concentration camps in Batangas from January to April 1902 resulted in the tragic deaths of thousands of Filipinos. These camps, intended to suppress the rebellion, became symbols of the human cost of the conflict. So, the war finally concluded with the surrender of General Miguel Malvar on April 16, 1902. So the staggering human cost of this conflict, an estimated 200,000 Filipino deaths, along with thousands of American and Filipino soldiers, serves as a stark reminder of its devastating impact. Now let's proceed to the post-crisis of Philippines under American rule. So the period following the Philippine-American War from 1913 to 1941 witnessed a gradual shift towards greater Filipino autonomy. So the appointment of Francis Harrison as Governor General in 1913 marked the beginning of this transition. The rise of the Nationalist Party, or the Partido Nacionalista, consistently winning significant majorities in legislative elections throughout this era, demonstrated the growing strength of Filipino political organization and their determination to shape their own destiny. The passage of Jones Act in 1916 established a bicameral legislature, granting Filipinos more control over their internal affairs. However, the demands for complete independence continued. The Philippines Assembly repeatedly petitioned the U.S. Congress for full independence, reflecting the unwavering desire for self-governance. Despite Governor General Leonard Wood's veto of a plebiscite on independence in 1926, The movement for independence persisted. A major turning point arrived with the passage of Tidings-McDuffie Act in 1934. This landmark legislation promised Philippine independence within 12 years, setting a clear timetable for the end of American colonial rule. The act also led to the establishment of Commonwealth of the Philippines in 1935, a transitional government paving the way for full independence. Manuel L. Quezon, a prominent leader of the pro-independence faction of the Nationalist Party, was elected as the first president of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth period saw significant progress in establishing Filipino self-government. Constitutional amendments further strengthened the institutions of the Commonwealth, culminating in the establishment of the Bicameral Congress. Manuel L. Quezon's re-election in 1941 with a resounding majority reinforced the public's support for his leadership and the path towards independence. However, the looming shadow of the World War II would soon cast a dark cloud over its promising period, interrupting the Philippines' journey towards self-determination.
The Philippine Independent Church. The time is ripe for the Philippine Church. Father ILP called an assembly at Panik, Tarlac on October 23, 1899. Agenda: Philippinization of Catholic Church, prevention of anarchy in religious matter, provisional constitution of the Filipino Church was framed. So niadtong October 23, 1899, gitawag ni Padre Aguilpe ang usa ka katigom sa Panik, Tarlac. Ang ilang tuyo mao ang paghimo og kaugalingong simbahang Pilipino. Ilang gusto nga ang simbahan mahimong mas Pilipino og likayan ang gubot sa relihiyon. Naghimo pud sila og temporaryo nga mga lagda para sa ilang simbahan. Wartan, thus the new church don't have opportunity to grow fully. January to 1900s months, Placido Chapel arrived at American Apostolic delegates prior the Filipino-hated chapel. Many Filipino clergy and revolutionary leaders joined the religious movement, influenced by chapel and at diplomatic language. Celestino Araulio and Jose Chanco led the problem of Filipino clergy on the Pope. So, sa Enero, ang bagong simbahan wala katubo sa tarong kay daghan pang mga problema. Sa January to 1900s miabot si Monsignor Placido Chapel, usa ka Amerikano nga gipadala sa Santo Papa. Siya kay father sa mga Kastilang pari. Mao nga daghang Pilipino ang nasuko niya tungod ani daghang Pilipinhong pari og mga leader nga sa revolutionary ang nisulmot o niabot sa mga bagong relihiyon. Tungod sa dili maayo nga pamaagi ni Chapel, Celestino Araulio og Jose Chanco mipadala og sulat sa Santo Papa aron ipahibalo nga ang problema sa mga paring Pilipino. Influenced by chapels and diplomatic language, Celestino Araulio and Jose Chanco lead the problem of Filipino clergy to the Pope. Tungod sa dili maayo nga pamaagi ni Chapel, sila Celestino Araulio og Jose Chanco mipadala og reklamo sa Santo Papa aron pahibalo ang problema sa mga paring Pilipino. August 3, 1902, Pascual H. Poblete scheduled a mass meeting at the Zorelia Theater. That same night, Isabelo de los Reyes Sr. called a meeting of his labor union at the Centro de Bellas Artes. Niadtong Agosto 3, 1902, si Pascual H. Poblete nagplano og dakong tigom sa Zorelia Theater. Niadtong gabi-una, usab si Isabelo de los Reyes Sr. nagtigom sa iyang mga kauban sa og trabahante sa Centro de Bellas Artes. Proposal to establish a Filipino church independent of Rome with Aglipi as the supreme bishop. So gihimo nilang bishops as ilahang supreme leader. Gihimo si Aglipi nga ilang gihimong supreme bishop o pangulong pari or pangulong simbahan sa pari. The new church is called Iglesia Filipina Independiente or Philippine Independent Church. So gitawag nila ang ilang bagong simbahan nga Iglesia Filipina Independiente. Executive Committee: Trinidad H. Pardo, Fernando Maria Guerrero, Martin Ocampo, Manuel Artigas, Trinidad H. Pardo, Fernando Maria Guerrero, Adriano Garces, at G. Barlin, Manuel Rojas, Trebio Dominguez. However, they denied any connection with the independent church. Aglipi and the Jesuits. Dr. Leon Maria Guerrero and Joaquin Luna invited Aglipi to an interview and Jesuit House and Santa Ana, Manila. Father Francisco Forodada, he insulted the Filipino press that urged Alipi to continue the succession to establish the Filipino Church independent of the Rome with Aglipi as the supreme bishop. So usa ka grupo nga gitawag nga executive committee nga sakop nila Trinidad H. Pardo, Fernando Maria Guerrero, Martin Ocampo, Manuel Artegas, Adriano Garces, G. Barlen, Manuel Rojas ug Toribio Dominguez. Apan ilang gisulti nga walay sila'y kalabutan sa simbahan. Si Aglipi ug ang mga Jesuita, ilabi na sila Father Leon Maria Guerrero ug Joaquin Luna, gitawag si Aglipi nga sa usa ka managsabot sa balay sa mga Jesuita sa Santa Ana, Manila. Sa gihapon, ang ilang sabot mao ang pagtukod og kaugalingong simbahang Pilipino nga dili konektado sa Roma or dili konektado sa Santo Papa. Aglipi and the Jesuit Dr. Leon Maria Guerrero and Joaquin Luna invited Aglipi to an interview at Jesuit House at Santa Ana, Manila. Father Francisco Forodada, he insulted the Filipino press that urged Aglipi to continue SEM. So si Aglipi og ang mga Jesuita og si Dr. Leon Maria Guerrero ug Joaquin Luna nag-imbita kang Aglipi sa usa ka interview sa balay sa mga Jesuita sa Santa Ana, Manila. Din si Amang Francisco Forodada nagpasipala siya nga sa Pilipino nga pare nga pag-awhag kang Aglipi nga padayon sa pagbuot. Si Amang Joaquin Villalonga del kay nakig-istorya kang Aglipi human sa gibuhat ni Forodada og iyang gipangayuan nga mubalik siya sa katolikong pagtuo. Si Aglipi gisuportahan sa batanong pare nga si Santiago Francer. Consecration of Aglipi. Aglipi was consecrated on September 6, 1902 as bishop, and he also accepted the position of supreme bishop October 26, first mass of Aglipi as supreme bishop January 18, 1903. He was consecrated as supreme bishop of the Bishop of Isabela, Cagayan, Pangasinan, Nueva Ecija, Cavite, and Manila. So si Aglipi nibalik siya as Katoliko. So nahimo siyang bishop sa tinabuk ang mga kuan sa tinibok ang pundok sa Katolikong simbahan. During his term, the Supreme Council of Bishops, or SCB, published 2 consecutive pastoral letters in May 1988, respectively that contain an articulation and elucidation of the nationalist heritage of the Church. In the 2 pastoral letters, the Church also reiterated its advocacy to the people's agenda, support to nationalist industrialization and genuine land reform, and boldly condemned foreign intervention on the political governance of the country. It was during Bishop Gano's term that his statement on development was issued on July 30, 1987. The statement laid down the agenda of the Church for renewal on the various aspects of its organizational and institutional life. Sa panahong sa iyang paglingkod as a Supreme Council of Bishops, nagpagawas og duha ka sunod-sunod nga sulat nga pastoral niadtong May 1980 ug 1989. Kining nga mga sulat nagpakita sa sunod nun nga panulundon sa simbahang Pilipino. Niadtong Hulyo 30, 1987 gipagawas usab ang Statement on Development sa panahon ni Bishop Gano. Kini nga pahayag naglatid sa agenda sa simbahan alang sa pagbag-o sa laing-laing aspeto. Colorum movement. The term colorum is taken from the Christian prayer ending in Omnia et Secula Secolorum, which means forever and ever. Colorum was first given to the Cofradia in southern Tagalog, who broke away in Spanish authorities in 1831 in Surigao. The colorum was organized by Geraldo Andoy Lasala. It was a secret society. So, ang colorum na term is ikan siya sa Kristohanong mga pag-ampo nga ang iyang ipasabot is Omnia et Secula Secolorum nga nagkahulugang hantod sa kahangturan. The colorum fought the longest starting from 1848 up to 1899, then joined the War of Independence and resumed the struggle after Aguinaldo. The supplied manpower and substantial financing to the General Malvar and continued on their struggle from 1903 to 1913 in Surigao. The colorum extended the fight against the Americans, or also known as the Colorum Uprising of 1924. Ang colorum is dugay jud siya, pinakadugay jud sa nga nakipag-away sa mga sugod sa 1848 to 1899. Then hantod nisamot na din sa mga kagawasan o nagpadayon sa nakipag-away sa mga kalaban human ni Aguinaldo. Epifanio San Juan 1986 to 2645 pageant. The attacking band of the Colorum increased appeared from everywhere with their black flag and fire upon the men in the presidensya. Kay Epifanio San Juan, ang iyang libro ni adtong 1986, ang grupo nga nag-atake sa Colorum misulong kalit lang sila nga miabot gikan sa tanang dapit. Sumurag surprise attack or something like that. Nga then naggunit sila black nga flag or bandila aron makit-an nila laban sa mga tao sa presidensya.
Land tenure system. During the American colonial rule, the Spanish feudal system was not dismantled through the system of land registration that favored the Filipino elite tenancy become more widespread. Land tenure system. During the American colonial period, the Spanish feudal system was not completely dismantled. Ang pagrehisto sa yuta mas pabor sa mga dato, the tenancy become more widespread. The hacienda system. The hacienda system keep the peasants in bondage. The landlord-tenant relation is ensured even after the institution of a democratic government. The hacienda system, the land-tenant relationship even after the establishment of a democratic government. Inilarawan ang sistemang kasama nga ang bag-uuma at magsasaka ang nagasupply ng mga gastuin. For example, like irrigation, land preparation, or etc. After harvest, the landlord ay bayaran ug ang nabilin ay ginapagati-hatian sa pagitan ng may-ari ng lupa at magsasaka. The buwisan system. Kasama system, the tenant cultivates the land with the landowner. Preparation, etc. from management decisions are usually made by the landowner, including those on seed selection, use of fertilizers, and days of planting and harvesting. After the crop is harvested, the landowner is reimbursed of his expenses, and the remainder of the harvest is divided with the tenant. The kasama system provides a degree of security to the peasant and fosters a reciprocal relationship between landlord and tenant. The buwisan system is a fixed rent system between leasehold tenants, and the landowner's rent is paid after each harvest. Kasagaran na ang pagpaupa ang mga bahin sa yuta. Then ang land tenure system in the buwisan system was a fixed rent system operates between the leasehold tenant and the landowner. The buwis or land rent is paid to the landlord after each harvest. It is a normal practice for leaseholders to sublease partially or totally someone also parcel. The first labor groups. On May 1, 1903, the first Labor Day celebration in the Philippines took place. It was organized by the Union Obrera Democrática de Filipinas, the first labor federation in the country. Thousands of workers marched from Pisa Marianes in Tondo to Malacanang to demand and complete independence while chanting anti-American capitalism and imperialism. The first Labor Day celebration, May 1, 1903, organized by Union Obrera Democrática de Filipinas, the first labor federation in the country. Thousands people marched from Plaza Marianes in Tondo to Malacanang Palace to demand complete independence and oppose American capitalism. The Union Obrera Democrática, founded on February 2, 1902, advocated for the rights of workers during the American occupation, and Isabelo de los Reyes, the leader, was arrested in August 1902 tungod sa sedition and pagrebelde, and also Dominador Gomez succeeded him and lead the first Labor Day celebration. The first labor groups. Later on, April 8, 1908, the Philippine Assembly passed a bill making the first day of May Labor Day a national holiday. Today, Labor Day or Araw ng Manggagawa in the Philippines is commemorated not only with parades and other forms of celebration but also with rallies and demonstrations of the labor sector. In the labor groups, it details the establishment of May 1st Labor Day as a national holiday in the Philippines on April 8, 08. Dili lang parade ilang gina-celebrate, kundi nagrally and nagdemonstration of the labor sector pod sila. It emphasized the role of workers as partners with the government in economic development and positive social change. The distinction between communism and socialism. Ang communism isang mas mataas at mas maunlad na anyo, and while for socialism is sa mga nagsuporta. The Communist Party of the Philippines. The Communist Party of the Philippines, Filipino Partido Komunisto ng Pilipinas, as revolutionary organized and communist party in the Philippines, formed by Jose Maria Sison on December 26, 1968, it is designated as a terrorist group by the United States Department of State through Executive Order number 13224 together with Sison and the New People's Army or NPA. The Communist Party of the Philippines or CPP, it described as a revolution organized and communist party founded by Jose Maria Sison. The Communist Party of the Philippines. New People's Army or CPP or NPA seeks to overthrow the Philippines government in favor of a new state led by the working class and to expel U.S. influence from the Philippines. The Communist Party of the Philippines or CPP was founded in 1968 and its armed wing. The New People's Army or NPA was founded in 1969. Because the party and its armed wing are so closely intertwined, they are often referred together as the CPP or NPA. Ang CPP or New People's Army na sila nga patumbahon ang pamahalaan ng Pilipinas ug ilisan og bagong estado nga gipanguluhan sa mga manggagawa o palayason ang mga US influence sa Philippines.